What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Speak Up Sports Podcast with Cass, Christian Shad. What's going on, fellas?
What's good?
What's good with y'all, boy?
Would love to say, like we usually do, a great week in the NFL last week, but it was absolutely not. The Thursday night game was a blowout. The 1 o'clock windows was mostly blowouts. The 4 o'clock windows was mostly blowouts. The Monday night game was also a blowout. So we got a little bit of a treat with the Sunday night game in the first half that ended in a blowout. So, so a lot of interesting things that happened in the NFL last week. Well, at least from the blowout side of things, I guess. NBA obviously got kicked off as well with the NBA Cup kicking off later this week, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit more down a couple weeks from now as we get closer and closer to the championship. But to start, what were some of you guys' biggest takeaways from this past week in the league?
I know, we just talked about a lot of blowouts, but it was also a lot of bounce back games for a couple of teams. Good win by the Houston Texans, bouncing back getting a win in the W column. Same thing with the Bills. After a bad loss to the Falcons, being able to come back and basically blow out the and the Patriots too. So being able to come back and blow out the Panthers, that was a good win by them. And shout out to the Ravens. We'll get into it later. Now I did pick them to lose because I just didn't think that even without Lamar, it wasn't looking like a good team to me, but they proved me wrong. So that's another good win by them, and hopefully that puts them back on the right track. But that's my biggest takeaway is a lot of bounce backs from some teams that still have questions. So we'll still have to see how the season go, but a nice way to try to get back on the right track for those few teams. So.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. Houston, it seems like CJ's catching a little bit of a stride. We'll see if he can keep that up, but definitely looks better than how the first 3-4 weeks of the season went for him. It's crazy because the closest game and honestly, one of the most interesting games ended up being Jets-Bengals. Jets got their first dub of the season in dramatic fashion. You can't take obviously too much away from this game in general. Because
I do think there's one key thing that you could take away from the game, but I'll let you finish, then I'll get into it.
All right. But you saw just dominant performances by the Broncos, by the Colts, by the Buccaneers, which Baker didn't play too well, but Saints scored 3 points, so dominating. Patriots, so it's like Eagles, Chris, of course. So it was one of those weekends where it's like, okay, like teams that need to step up did step up, and didn't play around either. Chiefs did play around with their food this weekend, so that was kind of even though they were not good games, it was cool to see the teams actually take it serious, unlike my team. So yeah.
Yeah, and the one takeaway that I do think that we can take away from that Jets Bengals game is I saw somebody on Twitter say it, and I'm sorry that I can't remember who I saw it. I just saw it in passing. But one of the things they mentioned was we always talk about the negatives about analytics in terms of when teams go for two or they go for it and they don't get it, and everybody's always like analytics. Well, one of the things that a lot of people also talk about is going for two when you're down 8 or down multiple scores in a game that you're coming back from, especially in a game where you've been losing and getting dominated. And the Jets did just that, and it ended up being the deciding factor in the game as they won by 1 point. We talk all the time, not us specifically, but the rest of the world always talks to the negatives when it comes to analytics, kind of highlighting that, which has been something that a lot of people. If you look on Twitter, if you're on NFL Twitter, you'll probably see it from some of the media guys, because it's, as I've been saying, I feel like for a long time it seems like everybody is just a big group think, so a lot of people say it, but one of the things or running trends is people always like they pass the down 8 test, and essentially that's when the team goes for 2 as opposed to taking an extra point. So keep that in mind, because I'm sure you will see it a few more times throughout the year, because once again the NFL media, national media at least, is a big group, a think tank that a couple people have started to now call out. But honestly, one of the takeaways that I had Tucker Kraft. I mean, he was in my top 10 when talking about tight ends coming into the season, and one of the things that I said was his ability to block as well as be a pass catcher. I thought he was kind of one of the closest players to a guy like George Kittle. What a big game on Sunday night that he had, and kind of continuing his, with Kittle being hurt throughout the season and Brock Bowers also being hurt. It's kind of been him and Tyler Warren in the tight end one race right now. And I think Tucker Kraft, I mean, on an Aaron Rodgers kind of Jordan Love night that everybody was kind of expecting for him to come out, kind of being the shining star of the day. I thought that was awesome for him. And then, I mean, like you said, Bo Nix and the Broncos just in general, having that game that they had against the Cowboys. I understand that the Cowboys defense is the Cowboys defense, but Bo Nix is also, we collectively didn't necessarily think that highly or don't necessarily think that highly of Bo Nix, especially given how he started the season. Obviously, we know that he's had some great comebacks and has played well in spurts, especially late in games. But there's been other spurts that it's been not so well, especially, I mean, what was it, like the first play of the game, he threw a pick, and it looked like it was going to go completely opposite from the way that it went. So for him to kind of continue the trend that he had from the magical fourth quarter that they had a couple weeks back, and then go into a blowout win against the Cowboys, a spot where a lot of people were kind of looking for, no disrespect to Dak, but, because he's a Cowboy and because he puts up some good stats, I feel like people always want to put him in the MVP conversation. And for me, I've always been kind of like, yeah, Dak's a really good quarterback, but it's always these games against the better teams in the league where it doesn't look as good. And I think this was a spot that I was looking, to see if Dak would take that step. And I think a lot of people were kind of coming into this into that game looking like, all right, the Broncos defense is stout. We know Sean Payton is good. Bo Nix, sometimes he does well, sometimes he doesn't. But this is a good spot for you to kind of, if you're going to really, really enter the MVP race, obviously because conversations week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, what it really is that. Now that we're kind of in the middle of the season, these are where these talks really, really, kind of start to fester themselves. So I thought that was an impressive performance by him and the entire team in total. And then 2 more things to add. Obviously, in that same game, Patrick Surtain got hurt, so he will be out for a few weeks. And then to go to one of Cass's points, talking about the Bucs versus Saints, we also saw a quarterback benching in that game with Spencer Rattler being benched for Tyler Shuck, and he is officially the starter for the rest of the season. So what do you guys think about that? Do you guys think that it was, I don't want to say fair given their record, but like, did you guys think that it was a good move to move from Spencer to Tyler?
I think so. At this point, you're 1-7. See what you got. It's not like it's not like he's a 21-year-old. I think he's 20. Is he 26 now? I think he's 26. So you got to see what you got in your 26-year-old rookie at this point. And you gave Spencer Rattler almost half the season. So you pretty much know what you got there, and that's not saying Spencer Rattler is bad. And he could definitely, progress some more, and I think he will get a chance to. But I think, honestly, Spencer Rattler even proved that he is, one of those. He can be a backup on your team that you have some confidence in, and that's what you want to see from a 5th rounder. So now you have to see what's going on, because your record at this point, wins, losses, it don't matter. It's all about development. So I think it's the right move. It's pretty much the only move that you can do right now, being that you drafted Tyler Shuck so high, and seeing what he got.
That's what I was going to say. I think it had more so to do with where he was drafted at versus the player. But, I mean, it makes sense for Kellen Moore. I mean, you're in a position where you can't get fired. I mean, you can theoretically, but they're not about to fire you. So you might as well go ahead and, if this is the quarterback that you like and you want to, get some good development, you might as well play him for the rest of the season just to see what you have. Because, I mean, at this point, that's all you can do is evaluate. And so, obviously your season's going to end before the playoffs. So at that point, you can say, hey, I think we can roll with him. We just need some few pieces, or, this ain't going to work. We might need to reevaluate the position. So this is probably just the best. It's really the best and only time you can do it. You wait till too far to the end of the season, you get to a situation where they're going to say, okay, next year he just started. This is actually first year starting, and then you starting back over again as an organization. So this probably was the best time for them to do it. It's unfortunate for Spencer, but I mean, they probably just seen enough, so it is what it is.
Yeah, and he's been playing all right. I don't think that he's been playing particularly well. I don't think he's been playing ass. He hasn't been. He's been all right. He's been okay in spots. I'd say he's been okay in spots, and he's been bad in spots. He had one game that he was pretty good, but aside from that, and I'm talking in totality for basically his whole career. Because some people have kind of said, like, is it a bit of a short leash? And to an extent, it is kind of, given that it's only half the season. But he did get some games last year as well, and he's 1-13. His overall record in 14 games. So, obviously that's not all on him, and taking some hits with some of the leadership that they lost with retirement this past season. And then, obviously player acquisition is not, they're not necessarily in a position to or based on, kind of the retirements with Derek Carr, where they were also with, Honey Badger and stuff like that. The money in the cap situation, they weren't necessarily in the best position to come into the season with acquiring players outside of the draft picks that they had. And, we all expected that. Everybody pretty much expected the Saints were going to be one of the worst teams in the league. So I do think they kind of have to know with Tyler. As Cass mentioned, he is 26 years old, and that's kind of been a topic of conversation for us over the past couple of years. Some of the older quarterback prospects, and given that he's a second round pick comparatively to some of the other guys, I'm not sure that he gets after this season. So I think they kind of want to know. Look, you got these 8 games, and if you're not showing like legitimate signs, like, we're drafting a quarterback next year. So that, I think that was kind of, even though they may still maybe even think that Spencer Rattler might be the better quarterback of the two. Obviously, he won the battle coming into the season. They have to kind of have that question answered, and they don't want to let that linger and then have we got this number 1 overall pick, or number 2 or number 3, wherever they end up at. Do we want to trade back some of these other teams, or like Justin Fields in the past, trade back and try to make it work, or do we just go ahead and bring in the guy that we believe in, or I guess technically brought him in, but bringing a guy we really believe in the first round and moving forward with that. So him throwing a pick almost immediately probably doesn't inspire a whole lot of confidence, but
it had to when they come out and say he's going to be here for the rest of the season. So
yeah. It's going to be interesting because, he's got, like I said, he's got these last few games. And then with the trade deadline coming up next week as well, there's been a lot of rumors about their receiving core. They obviously traded for a receiver from the Broncos at the beginning of the season as well. A pretty high pick as well, given, the 4th rounder. So it's also like you might be in a period of transition, so we're going to have to kind of see how he navigates some of that chaos if they do end up trading. I don't think they're going to trade Olave. I think it'll probably be Rashid Shaheed if it's going to be anybody. So if he does end up losing some players, it'll be interesting to see how that goes as well for him. So interesting times in New Orleans. Like Chris mentioned, I don't know. It would be odd to fire Kellen Moore at this point, because I don't know if we ever kind of got that confirmed, but we were all kind of like, I don't think Kellen Moore really wants this job. Like, I think everybody was kind of like coming into the season, or like before he actually signed, because it was kind of quiet until
very quiet.
Was it like, didn't he say something maybe like the day before the Super Bowl or something, or like
so they apparently wanted Mike McCarthy, and he turned it down, and so it was like right in the Super Bowl week when they was like, okay, let's try to get Kellen Moore. So he was supposed to come back, and they just asked him then, and that's one of the things where people say you just can't. That's just something you just can't turn down.
It's 1 of 32. You
can't turn it down, but at the same time, like, I might
turn that bitch down. But I mean,
that's what they say. You can't turn them down.
Would you really have turned that down?
Yeah. I mean, you have to evaluate. You have to evaluate your options, because I think maybe not all coaches fit in this category, but typically when you get a job, if you get fired from that job, you don't get a second job. So,
Wow.
potentially locking yourself into an offensive coordinator only job moving forward, especially when he was when he was kind of a hot commodity a few years back, and then he kind of had to, you know, uh, kind of retool himself to kind of
Rebuild it.
rebuild his status, or at least media wise build his status.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think having already experienced that at the offensive coordinator level, I wouldn't want to force something with the head coaching just because it's open, knowing that the Saints, which you get an immense amount of credit if you are able to turn it around, but if you're not,
I feel
depending on
like
how it ends up looking.
I just feel like one of the only incentives was probably them guaranteeing that he won't get fired.
They probably gave him
That
a
probably was
sizable
a
They probably
contract.
did get that guarantee. Yeah.
like you got to give me time because this is not
You bringing me into a shit show that people have clearly turned down multiple people.
Right.
So I mean, at this point, he knows he wasn't the first option. So.
And there's a lot of things, like I said, I mean, that cap situation, they've got to clean it up. They still have to figure out some things in terms of, what they're going to do with some of their players, because Olave really hasn't established himself. I mean, he's a good receiver, but he hasn't established himself as like somebody that, every team should want. Maybe like we thought coming into it. Obviously, injuries have hurt him a little bit, but Kamara doesn't. I mean, he just there for real. Cam Jordan, he's getting up there in age. Chase Young has looked really good, been really good all season, or when he's played this season. But outside of that, Kool-Aid's looked good in spots. I don't know how many players you can kind of hang your hat on that are guys that are going to be here that are staples for the New Orleans Saints moving forward. So it's a lot of acquisition that they need to have. So they probably should be on a fire sale. I don't know if they will, but we've kind of been saying that for the past few years, I feel like. So, but it's tough. It's a tough situation. So that's exactly. I wouldn't agree to any job. I think that you do a good enough job, especially with you just won a Super Bowl. I mean, you'd have to look and be like, he can make an argument that, hey, I was a difference. Like they went back before and they lost.
That's true.
Obviously they added Saquon and some other players, but he could say
that's on his resume. Hey, I had a $2,000 rusher. That's me.
And he can also say, look, the season before there was some type of weird energy going on. That shit didn't happen with me. Like, it seems like some weird energy going on this year. That shit didn't happen with me. Yeah. So, like, there's a lot of things that I feel like he could have, if you didn't take this job, like, you could have went into this next year. And there's a possibility for some openings. Like, Miami, I don't know. You got to get rid of Tua, or probably get rid of Tua. But, Miami might come open. Who knows what. There's a lot of teams. There's a lot of we could have a surprise. Maybe New York Jets come open. New York Giants. I don't know if he wants to go to the Jets. I don't think anybody.
Hell, he could have went to the Titans next year, man. That shit open.
Go to the Titans next year. You got the number 1 overall pick, and Cam Ward, even though statistically it's not there, he has had flashes. So I mean, there's options always come open. People always say it's 1 to 32, but if you feel like you're good, like shit. Bet on yourself. That's what he's been doing for the past 5 years, or whatever the case may be, since he left Dallas. So keep betting on yourself. Shit. So,
yeah, you got a point there.
But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into our hot seat watch. It's a lot of people that can be on the hot seat after last week's blowouts. For a lot of different teams. Who you guys got this week and why?
So last week I had, Kyler Murray. Obviously they was on a bye week or whatever, so he wasn't playing. They got an opportunity if he does play this week. They got Dallas. You could put them out their misery. You could, right the ship. So we'll see what that goes on with that. But this week on my hot seat watch, I got the Pittsburgh Steelers, specifically their defense. Y'all have the highest paid defense in the league. And this year, y'all done gave up 32 points to the Jets, 31 to the Seahawks, 33 to the Bengals, and 35 to the Packers. Now, obviously, the Packers are a good team. Some of these teams had high volume offense, but the problem as far as coming into this season was we're kind of like a quarterback type of ordeal away. Aaron Rodgers has been playing good this year. That defense has been playing ass this year. And you went out, you signed Darius Slay, you traded for Jalen Ramsey, you still got TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith. I mean, you just made a trade this recently for Kyle Duggar. So it's like, at some point this defense needs to show up. You need to help your boy Aaron Rodgers out, and they have not held up their end of the bargain. And they got a tough fucking matchup this week. They got the fucking Colts, buzzsaw at this point in the league. So you got a chance to try to right the ship somehow, some way. I'm not saying you will, but that defense has to show up at some point in time. This is just a failure on. I mean, I wouldn't want to just put it on defensive coordinator. He's been there since 2022, so I'm not just gonna say it's him, but it's something going on there, and for that defense to be with all the star names, and maybe they're just getting up in their age, and we just not realizing, everybody fall in love with the name and not realizing, like, hey, these are some older guys on this defense, but they're getting paid like they're supposed to be the best defense. So, Pittsburgh Steelers defense, on that hot seat, man. I got Daniel Jones coming in on the absolute heater right now. Hey, show me something.
This, we talked a lot about the Commanders, and we kind of see how their defense is looking. We probably should have we showed a lot of love. I feel like this offseason for Pittsburgh and some of the signings that they made. So, maybe it's because we thought a little bit more highly of the players that they brought in, but absolutely, definitely,
it's a bad look. It's a bad look what they're putting out there right now. I agree with that, Chris, 100%. Last week I had the Vikings, Kevin O'Connell on my hot seat, and they turned around on Thursday night and showed exactly why they deserve to be on the hot seat. Now I know he's been under fire a little bit about playing Carson Wentz throughout while he was pushed through the injury and all that. But I think the Vikings are just in a bad spot right now. Just overall, like, okay, JJ's coming back this week, but you had the Vikings. I mean, not the Vikings, the Lions. I'm sorry. In a big game on Sunday. So, I mean, we'll see, if the Vikings and JJ can kind of turn around their season. But this week, I'm gonna go true hot seat on this. And I'm gonna put Matt Eberflus officially on the hot seat. This is like a true one. People are calling for his job. People been calling for his job, really. But it's not all on the coordinator. I do get that. But at some point, especially this halfway through the season, you have to try to make the best of what you have. And the product that you're putting out on the football field is just not competitive at all. There's so many open holes in your defense. This game against the Broncos, it was just ridiculous. I know Bo played good, but there were also a lot of open receivers. And I know Sean Payton is good at scheming it up. I get it. But it's been that way all season, though. Just people open. And it's like you're making no adjustments throughout the game. You're making no adjustment after halftime. Something has to give. Now you're playing on national TV this week. You're going up against, we'll see if it's Kyler or Jacoby. But either way, you got to show something to the world that, okay, we're not just a turnstile on defense, that we can compete. And this Cardinals offense is no slouch. Like, they still got players, and we've seen them compete. We've seen them go blow for blow a little bit with the Colts a couple weeks ago. They can put up points when they want to. So I just want to see a little bit, not even a little bit. I want to see actual pushback from the Cowboys defense and show some heart. But at that point, you gotta just man up and stop the people. So I put Matt Eberflus because his job is in jeopardy this season. I don't think he'll get fired in the season, but at the end of the season, I don't see how you don't look like elsewhere for a defense coordinator at this point and what we're seeing happen.
Yeah. It's tough.
That's nasty.
Tough. Everybody been having their best games against Dallas, and
everybody.
It's, like I said, standalone game on Monday night in Dallas.
Yeah,
it's interesting. I mean, it could go either way. And, I know a lot of people have been blaming the defense, and obviously Dak's been, holding up his end of the bargain. But it's a big game for the Cowboys just in general, to kind of see where they're kind of decide where their season's going to go. And especially considering how the Eagles, up to the last couple of weeks have played, and definitely with Washington, with everything they've got going on. It's an opportunity. It was an opportunity to kind of take over, and they haven't really taken over that opportunity. So, from my hot seat. Oh, so I'm gonna go back a couple weeks here because last week I actually did not get into who I had on the hot seat the previous week. So a couple weeks ago, I did have Liatu Latu and Abdul Carter on my hot seat, and Liatu Latu did end up having a pretty decent game against the Chargers. Ended up having a sack. Probably should have had more. Not saying he should have had more in the game, but like just how the game was being played, like bro, he probably should have got a little bit more than that. But he has been continuing his his pressure dominance, I guess, if you want to say that. And the sacks have slowly started to come. He's at 2.5 now. I think back-to-back weeks with a sack or a half sack. So decent showing for him. And I want to say that he is like it's looking decent for him. And Abdul Carter, same thing. They're kind of in the same boat. Out any sacks. Sacks haven't started. I think that his stacks will probably rack up a little faster than Latu because Latu's issue, he doesn't necessarily create quick sacks. His is a little bit longer. So we'll see how that goes. And then last week, I had Michael Penix. And obviously he did not play last week, so his is going to extend into this week as well. So I will add on to that.
Got a lot to watch for.
Yeah, got a lot to watch for. So I'll actually add on to that, but not on the Michael Penix side. I've got Terry Fontenot, Ryan Poles, and Kwesi Adolfo Mensa on the hot seat this week. I will go ahead and start with Terry. As I mentioned, Michael Penix. Mentioned Michael Penix last week in terms of his play and what he can do and how the Falcons viewed him coming into the season. But I don't think that you can mention all of that without also mentioning what the pieces around what the pieces around him have looked like, not only in the coaching staff but also the talent itself. I think that everybody, one thing that I mentioned last week was that nobody really cares about the Falcons. So, Michael Penix has kind of gotten away with, not necessarily gotten away with, but he has kind of escaped a little bit of criticism that some of the other young quarterbacks have, like your Caleb Williams or even JJ for a little bit. Obviously, his was a little due to what they did last season. But on top of that, a lot of everybody kind of with the Falcons is kind of escaping criticism outside of maybe locally. And there was a little bit of a trend that I think that kind of popped up this week that was like, fire Raheem, keep Terry. Absolutely not. Terry, absolutely not. Absolutely not. We're not doing that. We're not getting into that. One of the things that I've been saying is like people don't necessarily care about the Falcons. And one of the things that everybody says, hey, the Falcons have this super, super talented team. In my opinion, that thought process has come more so from, hey, we know that the Falcons drafted 4 straight times in the top 10. We have no idea what the rest of the fucking team looks like or what they look like on a day-to-day basis. Not saying that the Falcons aren't talented or whatever the case may be, but I think nationally that's a lot of where that comes from. And right now, like Terry, it's not looking great. As leaving Penix out of it because he still has some time to show. But if he does not show, you're 0 for 5 with quarterbacks. That's Deshaun Watson. You get lumped into that because that's all y'all. That's Deshaun Watson and fucking up your the ending of the best player in your franchise's career. That's coming into the season with Marcus Mariota, coming into the season with Desmond Ridder, coming into the season with Kirk Cousins, and then making that whole Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix, even though the drama wasn't necessarily loud during the season at least, it was loud for a point. And all of it's not looking great. And then if you want to talk back to the Michael Penix thing, we also have to talk about how, one of the things that's been mentioned is like he's in his pseudo rookie season. That it's midseason now, that shit's out the window, but we have to look at everybody else that should be helping him along as well. And right now, your 2 prize signings from your 4 prize signings from last season really didn't pan out with the safety Justin Simmons. Judon is obviously not, both of them are not there anymore. Darnell Mooney, he hasn't been healthy all season. Freaking Kirk Cousins, obviously, we know that, whatever the case may be. Everything else is kind of looking like your first round pick this year. Your 2 first round picks haven't necessarily popped. Like James Pierce he popped a little bit in his first game, but now you traded that future first round pick. It's not looking great on the record. Donovan Ezeraku is starting to come on for the Cowboys, which should we even talk about a Cowboys defender? that's not looking good for you as well. So it's a lot of things that's starting to pile up for Terry. That's, maybe Raheem Morris is kind of taking a lot of the brunt of it, and you're just kind of chilling in the background. But it's got to start showing. If we're going to keep talking about this team being a talented team, look, the quarterback can't just be on the quarterback. Everybody else has to bring up the parts. And right now, the only part that seems to be doing their part is Bijan Robinson and then the occasional Drake London. So that's on you, Terry. Ryan
Let me add on to that real quick. Also with Terry, just the depth of the roster, that's on Terry. And we've seen that. We've seen it now. They lost their tackle, of course, in the preseason. And they're struggling to find a suitable replacement. That's because Terry, you've been there 5 years. You have never drafted a developmental tackle. You don't draft too many developmental offensive linemen, period. But you definitely didn't draft the tackle to kind of sit behind when you do have two older tackles. That should have been on your list. Now you look at injuries. Honestly, the last few years we've actually been pretty lucky with injuries, and that's it hasn't necessarily translated to the record. But now you're seeing like a lot of guys start getting injured. Where's your depth? We put out a linebacker you put out a linebacker that literally cannot play linebacker in the NFL. That's who you drafted. That's who you signed on to be your depth behind this free agent that you just signed, that just added to the team. So it's the depth of this team is so trash, and that's on Terry for sure. Like, you have to have options. And I know a lot of that is because, and that's Terry's fault as well, because you signed Kirk Cousins to that money that you could have used filling out the rest of your roster. Go ahead, Ryan Poles.
Yeah. And so getting into and one thing I did want to, most of this focus is more so on the draft, so that goes to that depth piece in terms of on how they've been drafting the three guys that I've got. So that goes to that depth piece because obviously, when you're a team that has been drafting as high as they have for the past few years, you should have some stars, and then you should be at least getting some solid quality players. And, no disrespect to Drake London, the only star right now is Bijan. And Drake London is a really good player, but, everything has to start picking up. And then Kyle Pitts, I feel like it's a little bit redundant with Drake London. I think if they could trade Kyle Pitts for a guy that's a deep threat receiver, I think that would do wonders for that team and that offense.
I completely agree with that.
Getting back to Ryan Poles, look, hey buddy, you're so lucky right now that Matt Eberflus is not doing well in his second role because everything is not looking good for you right now. Seemingly we have not hit on a first round pick at all throughout your tenure. Darnell Wright is a solid tackle. Maybe he's good, maybe he's not. That remains to be seen. Caleb Williams, to go back to the Cowboys, if you take out the Cowboys game this season, which he threw 4 touchdowns, he has 1,300 yards on 60% completion, and it might be sub 60% if we take out that Cowboys game. 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, which is not great. Not great for a guy that came into the season touted as generational. You basically, from the moment that you knew that you had the first round pick, we all knew Caleb Williams was going to be a pick. He's kind of been escaping a little bit of criticism where people are trying to say, it's it's only year 2. He had incompetency around him last year. Blase. Maybe he did. It's also looking like he was a big part of that problem. And one thing that we didn't really talk about, the whole Troy Aikman, Caleb Williams thing, they're winning kind of really, really swept that under the rug. But, maybe this is my priors and having a little bit of confirmation bias. I know I talked a little bit about it on this show, and I talked to y'all about it a lot in terms of that article from Tyler Dunn that came out about Caleb. One thing we know about Troy Aikman is as buttoned up and as professional as there is to come. There was a lot of talk about people saying that he was kind of trashing him on the broadcast, and then after, Caleb kind of just like offered, a couple of days later, like, hey, we didn't end up getting a chance to connect pregame or prior to the Monday night game. We just schedules didn't link up. That's not common I've never heard that before. You were coming off of a bye week, so you knew the Monday night game was coming. You knew that you had to do that. That is a weekly thing. To me, it screams Caleb wasn't in there where he said, I was just in there. We were working out. You weren't working out. You blew him off. And he's professional enough that he didn't call you out on it, but I am like 99% sure that he blew Troy Aikman off, and Troy Aikman lit his ass up on that broadcast, and that's why he did it.
Crazy.
I just knowing what we know of the two people, and we don't know them personally, honestly, obviously, and I don't want to but from the stories that we've read, from the things that we've heard, one thing maybe Caleb has not been, maybe Caleb is misrepresented and he's not like a bad guy. One thing we know is Troy, like I said, is as buttoned up and as professional as they come. So when he says something, that should typically have a little light bulb. But obviously a bad loss for them this weekend, losing to the Ravens without Lamar Jackson. But all four of your receivers aren't practicing today. Looks like you could possibly be out all four receivers. Colston Loveland.
That's crazy.
Colston Loveland has
top 10
not
pick right
necessarily
there.
popped. That was a top 10 pick, a guy that you drafted over Tyler Warren, who was kind of consensus for the most part, the number one tight end for a lot of people. And even I was a guy that didn't want Tyler Warren. But we're talking about a first team All-Pro right now, possibly. That's not a good look. So the second round pick, Luther Burden, he's had a couple moments, but he hasn't necessarily seen the field consistently. He hasn't necessarily done anything that's this is Luther Burden that we expected coming out of Missouri or whatever the case may be. Like I said, Caleb Williams, Roma Dunze looks good, but outside of that, it's starting to, the clock's about to strike midnight, and the more that questions that we have about Caleb, the more eyes are going to start to be pointed towards Ryan Poles. So Ryan Poles, you're on the hot seat. Terry, you're on the hot seat, and my boy Questy, come here, bring your ass here. So, man, going from the decision for Sam Darnold, and sorry this is long-winded, but going from the decision from Sam Darnold to J.J. McCarthy, it's looking kind of tough. And right now, just much like I just talked about Ryan, I don't know if we've hit on a first-round pick. Lewis Seen is already off the team. He's bounced around. I mean, he had an injury coming into that, but he's off the team. Jordan Addison, year 3, I don't know if he's going to hit 1,000 yards, but he hasn't hit 1,000 yards yet. If I'm a betting man, I bet he probably doesn't hit 1,000 yards this season, and that's more because of probably from him missing games and then quarterback instability. But, you're going to have to make a decision on him because you do have Justin Jefferson on the other side with that huge contract. In that same draft, Mekhi Blackman was the second pick that you guys had. He's on the Colts. You've already gotten rid of him. J.J. McCarthy, I don't, much like I said about Penix last week, he does have a little grace, but we are in the middle of year 2. We understand that you didn't play. That rookie stuff only goes so far. And by the end of this year, it's we're not going into next season saying it's your second year. It's year 3, buddy. And we had to make decisions by the end of next year if we're going to sign you. Dallas Turner, a guy that I really liked in the draft, they traded up to get you. They traded up to get both of y'all, really. J.J. McCarthy and Dallas Turner. I don't know. So Donovan Jackson, the lineman, this year drafted, we'll see how that goes. But the second pick that you got this year was Ty Felton, a receiver. You had to trade for Adam Thielen. Why? You drafted a receiver in the top 3 rounds, and you still had to trade for another receiver this offseason. An old-ass receiver at that. Why? Because you probably didn't think that other receiver is good. So back, as Cass mentioned with the Falcons, the depth is starting to show. You lucked into Sam Darnold. I'm not going to give you credit for that because you brought him in to be a backup. And you basically went into the test, did the Christmas tree, and somehow got an A. And I'm not going to give you credit for that. So as we start to have more questions about JJ, and it'll start this week, the questions are going to start about you. You're not going to question KOC. The 3 GMs, you guys are on the hot seat. Unfortunately, you guys all had a quarterback that you drafted in the last year, and their success is tied to your success. So the time's now to show it. We're at the mid-season. They got to do something. So you guys are all on my hot seat this week. So yeah.
Yeah.
The drafting it's a lot of it's really a lot of GMs that I really wanted to have on here at once because the drafting has not necessarily been great across the board for a lot of people, and it's starting to catch up to these teams. So I stuck with them because we've been talking. I specifically been talking. I had 2 of the guys on my hot seat. I think JJ was on somebody else's hot seat earlier this season. So I thought it made sense to go ahead and talk about the architects
the head of the
of the
snake.
team. So,
Mm-hmm.
you guys look hot seat, and two of you guys could possibly be fired this season. Quessy, you signed an extension, but next year.
Yeah.
Buddy, next no.
I don't want to call for nobody's job, but hey, next year it starts to, if JJ doesn't pan out this season, hey, it starts to get a little ugly. So it's going to be interesting. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the picks for the week. What do we look like last week? And we'll go ahead and get started off on Thursday night.
Last week, not a bad week. Not a bad week for me and shot at least. We both got 4 out of 6. Chris, you got 3 out of 6. You went with Chicago, and you had the qualifier as well. And Lamar didn't play,
and
they still lost.
Ryan Poles ass, man.
Shot. The only 2 that you got wrong, of course, both of you and Chris picked Pittsburgh, and we saw what happened on that Sunday night game. That's that. And I picked.
Started off right.
Yeah. And we all picked San Francisco, and we see how that went. I picked Baltimore. I had a little qualify in there. But Baltimore still won, so I won't give myself that point at all. So total on the season, I'm at 22. Chris, you're at 28. Shire, you're at 25. Big week coming up.
Yes, it is a big week coming up, and I tried to tell y'all Baltimore was going to win that game no matter what.
You said no matter what.
You said it.
Yeah.
Chicago,
I just had a feeling. But sticking with Baltimore, obviously we got them on Thursday night this week against Miami, coming off of a big win this past week. So who you guys got this week and why?
Miami did come off a good win, but I'm going to roll with Baltimore. Obviously, Lamar's supposed to be playing it. They're just a better team than Miami. I'm not going to get tricked by that W last week. Miami's just not a good team, so I'm going to roll with Baltimore.
I also got to go with Baltimore on this one. I'm not tricked at all by that Miami game against the Falcons. That was a complete blunder by a trash team. Now Miami, Tua did play good. Tua was on time. He ended up with 4 touchdowns passed through the air, and it was a great game plan. That might be done. You cooked up, but it's also Baltimore, and I feel like they're catching their stride, especially defensively, that we've seen over the last couple of games. So I got Baltimore in this one. I don't think it's necessarily close either.
Yeah, I got Baltimore as well. With Lamar coming back, obviously things are shaping up with that big win last week. As I mentioned last week, another reason that I picked them. Like I said last week, I thought the defense, some of the trades that they made with getting rid of Adafe and bringing in the safety from the Chargers would change some things up. And Kyle Hamilton definitely wreaked some havoc. We saw that against the Rams as well, where the Rams were struggling to score as well there. And then Miami, rewatching the game, I watched the Falcons game. Some of it was definitely on the Falcons itself, and I know I had Terry on my hot seat as well. But I do actually, I do think that they had a good game plan. They changed up a lot of stuff.
Great game plan, yeah.
And some of that might be familiarity with Ulbrich and Mike McDaniel. But I do think that they really just called some of it obviously was the Falcons, but I think a lot of it had to do with more so Miami than anything. So I do think that we will have a good game, but I think Baltimore pulls away in the last minute, and they end up winning by 10 points in the end. So getting into the next game, the Colts or Indianapolis going against Pittsburgh. Obviously, the Colts had another big win last week against the Titans, and Pittsburgh, tough loss, even though they played pretty well, at least in the first half. Who do you guys have this week and why?
Yeah. I mean, I had Pittsburgh on my hot seat, but I'm gonna roll with Indianapolis. I just think at this point for Pittsburgh, especially going against Indy, you have to put up some points, and they can score, but it doesn't come in bunches like the Colts have been, and I have no reason to believe that the Colts gonna stop scoring. And until Pittsburgh showed me that their defense is worth the money they're being paid, I ain't going with them niggas. But yeah, I just think at this point, like even like you said, Shot, I mean they played good, but Green Bay is one of those teams that can, step on the gas at any point, and they just couldn't keep up. And so at this point, I don't I don't see them slowing down Indy at all. So
Yeah, I also gotta go with Indy in this one. Pittsburgh is definitely going to be challenged in this one. We talked about their defense earlier. It's it's going to be tested by that boy Jonathan Taylor. Their Pittsburgh is down probably their best tackling defensive back. And Deshaun Elliott. We'll see if Kyle Duggar can get on and get right, but I don't. That's still a fast turnaround in 5 days. Going up against a top back in the league. So it's gonna be tough for that Pittsburgh defense to get right. And I don't know. It's hard. It's hard for me to just pick Pittsburgh to go like blow for blow with Indianapolis because they're going to score. So at that point, you're putting Aaron Rodgers in a position that you don't necessarily want him to be in, and having to go back and forth. I think that comes out to bite him right here.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a good game. This is the start of a 3-game stretch where it's probably the most important 3-game stretch for the Colts thus far. Because they got Pittsburgh, who is a team obviously in the AFC. Next week they've got the Falcons in Germany, and not that game is necessarily important, but the Falcons do play the Patriots this week, who could possibly be the Colts, toughest competition for that 1 seed where they're sitting right now, and then they have Kansas City coming off the bye. So I think this is another test for them. I think it's going to be a close game. Well, I think it's going to be a close game to start, and then I think the Colts end up taking off at the end. I think the game goes very similar to how the Packers game went. I just think that that Steelers defense, like we mentioned, is not great, and Shane has their number right now. Last week they comment that Mike Tomlin also made earlier this season when he was talking about Joe Flacco. He tried to take a little shot at Anthony Richardson. I think that the Colts team will remember that as well. Last year they did beat them with both Joe Flacco and Anthony Richardson. Year prior they put 30 on them with freaking Gardner Minshew. So Shane Steichen has got that defense's number right now, and so I think with Lou Anarumo, some of that familiarity with Pittsburgh as well, I think they will get some scores offensively. So I got a high-scoring game that the Colts pull out. Whatever in the end.
Man, that hoe gonna be close early 0-0 to the Colts score. Then that shit over.
We'll see. They got. I mean, I'll get into something else a little bit later, but we'll talk a little bit more about it. But I got the Colts. Get to the next one. Houston. Coming, like you mentioned, coming off a bounce back win, going against Denver, coming off of a huge win. Who do you guys got this week?
Yeah, both teams coming off big wins. Both teams got great defenses, and both team offenses still a question mark for me. But I think this week, I think Houston is gonna overtake Denver. I think we're gonna get one of those coming down to earth games for both Knicks. I mean, you just played the Cowboy defense. That defense, as we see, very bad, very bad. And I think although Denver has a good defense, I think they will miss Patrick Surtain. I think the combination of that pass rush plus having the great DBs in the backfield obviously terrorizes the opposing offenses, but I think they will miss him. I think Nico might have a good day, so more with Houston.
Yeah, Nico and Christian Kirk both at practice today, both on track to play. After missing, Christian Kirk has missed multiple weeks, but of course Nico missed that last game, and Houston was still able to put up points with Xavier Hutchinson out there, who is a good receiver. But damn, he balled out. I'm gonna go Houston with this one. That Pat Surtain injury is a little troublesome, and we've seen the last few weeks. Riley Moss, he's not a bad player, but he definitely gets targeted. And he definitely gets some flags thrown on him, whether it's his fault or not. And I think going up against a receiver like Nico, especially that kind of frame of receiver, is going to be very troublesome for him. I think you can see if Houston's line can hold up, there's a tall task against this Broncos defense, you could see a huge day for Nico in this one. And I think that's what we end up seeing. I got Houston.
Yeah, so I'm going with Denver in this one. So I actually, that was Houston. The Houston game was actually the last game that I rewatched, earlier today. And I actually did not come away with the takeaways that a lot of people did, that Houston's offense has bounced back. One thing that I did think that was a benefit for Houston's offense was that Nico Collins was out, and it allowed C.J. Stroud to spread it around a little bit. And I do think that he did that a little bit better and kind of kept the offense on schedule, or at least tried to keep the offense on schedule a little bit. They still had a lot of pre-snap penalties. They still had a lot of penalties, holdings offensively. And I think the 49ers to me looked a little bit more so like what I thought they would look against the Falcons when I picked the Falcons to win that game. As I mentioned, I thought that they were coming down to the end of the Mac Jones magic or whatever the hell he had going on. And I also think that their defense didn't play really well, and obviously we saw that was reflected in a trade that happened this week with them acquiring Keon White. So I now saying all that, I do not believe in Bo Nix. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Don't get it twisted.
I do not think he's about to have a good game. I think it'll be a low scoring game that they ended up that Denver ends up winning in the end. Part of that I think is because of being at home. Part of that I also think that I think that they're better coached, and something to pay attention to. Miko Ryans and his relationship with that team and that locker room, there has been that happened a little bit while they were losing, but there has been some rumblings from Houston locals, like Houston local reporters, talking about, I don't know if the guys are, necessarily love D'Amico like they say they do. A couple weeks ago, we saw, there was definitely some stuff that happened, or not stuff that happened, but like there was definitely some like not on the same page between D'Amico and their star corner. Why am I blanking on his name right now?
Derek?
No, Stingley, Derek Stingley. In terms of their coverages, because they were asking Derek Stingley about, or they asked D'Amico about why JSN wasn't necessarily getting pressed against the Seahawks, and Derek Stingley came out and was like, "Look, I'm just doing what I'm asked. Like I don't play out of, like, I'm not just some reckless player. I play what I'm asked." And he kept saying, or D'Amico kept saying he was asked to press. There was a little bit of that, and which led to some other of the, like I said, the Houston reporters kind of, having those questions. So that is something to watch moving forward as well. But I got Denver in this one. Getting into probably the biggest game of the week. Obviously, Kansas City going against Buffalo. Both coming off big-time wins, big-time blowouts, obviously getting prepared for this game. Who do you guys got this week and why?
Yeah, probably is the game of the week. Buffalo's at home, and they seem to always have Kansas City number in the regular season, so I'm going to roll with Buffalo. I think the disadvantage that Buffalo has, I'm not sure Kansas City can take advantage of it. Buffalo can't stop the run, but Kansas City cannot fucking run the ball, so... Oh yeah, you're right. They ain't got Pacheco, so maybe they hand that motherfucker off now. But no, I just think Buffalo. I think Buffalo is a better team than Kansas City right now. I mean, even with a big win from Monday night, better offensive team. I don't think Kansas City won that game because they did not look good at all to me. And obviously, Buffalo, they played a Carolina team without Bryce, but that was a good bounce back game for them to be able to put up 40 points. So I'm going to roll with Buffalo with this one.
It's a tough one for me to pick. Buffalo is at home. I'm going to go with Kansas City, though. I'm not, going crazy with it. It could go either way. It truly can. Who knows which team is going to show up on Sunday. But I'm going to go with Kansas City. I think they'll get very creative on offense. And I do not like that Buffalo defense at all. Like, I know they can't stop the run, but now you're down. You're down a starting linebacker, 2 starting linebackers, really. You're down your safety. It's looking real bleak for that entire, back 7. So it's hard for me to sit there and say that they'll be able to stop Rashee Rice, which we've seen in the last couple of games. They're being very creative with how they get him the ball, getting him the ball in space. Same thing with Xavier Worthy, which is what they always do. And that Buffalo defense has a hard time tackling. So it's and they're down Ed Oliver, their best offender for the foreseeable future. It's just tough for me to get around that Buffalo defense. So I gotta go Kansas City.
And interesting stat, there's only 2 teams that haven't had a 100-yard receiver this season thus far, and it's Kansas City and the Indianapolis Colts. So, given how both of those offenses are performing, I thought that was a little bit interesting. But I am also going with Kansas City in this one. I think that it's time for the script to be flipped a little bit in terms of, getting their number in the regular season versus the postseason. I'm not so sure that they get to see them in the postseason, but much like everybody said, I don't think that Buffalo's defense is all the way right. Losing Ed Oliver is also a huge loss for them, and I think that he might end up being out for the rest of the season. So it gets very tough, and then I just, much like so when I was talking about the Colts game, I said, I'm going to get into something else, and I'm going to tell you why. So a couple weeks back, I told you guys, and you guys were a little bit surprised. I was like, the Colts are going to beat they were going to blow out the Chargers.
The Chargers.
Well, 20% of that was like Rashad is confident in the Colts. The other 80% of it was I see the writing on the wall, and in terms of at the beginning of the season, I kept saying, the AFC West has to take advantage of Kansas City having this slow start. Once the Chargers lost that game against the Giants, I was like, things moving that Kansas City will end up getting that division. And that was a lot of the driving force behind why I picked the Colts that week. A lot of the driving force, not a lot of the driving force. Now I'm a little bit more confident in the Colts and how they're playing. The driving force behind that pick with the Colts as well this week is because I think things have been shaping up for Baltimore to take that division. So I think Kansas City, ultimately, this is a big game for them that they need to keep pace with the Broncos, who have seemingly been keeping up with, keeping their end of the bargain up. So I'm going with Kansas City in this one, and I think that they win probably handily. Getting into our Sunday night game, maybe a little bit of a snoozer, but we'll see. Seattle versus the Washington Commanders. Who you guys got this week and why?
Man, I got Seattle. Commanders are not good, man. Now they're gonna be down Terry again, even though he did catch the one pass for a touchdown, but that offense just doesn't look right. And even though the defense they play good at first, but it just you could just tell they're just an old defense. They're gonna crumble every time. It doesn't matter if they start off good in the first quarter. Eventually, they get worn down and they can't do anything about it. And JSN, he's on a fucking heater right now, and Lattimore did get that pick, but I don't know if he can handle that young man out there. So I'm gonna roll with Seattle with this one. And they're at Seattle. I love Seattle defense, so I'm gonna roll with Seattle on this one.
Seattle has been very good on the road, and not so much at home. But they're coming off a bye as well. It's Seattle, man. I don't think Washington's going to be able to compete. Marshawn Lattimore, like you mentioned, is going to have his hands full, and that's going to be a tough assignment for him. He's going to get exposed on a national stage, and it just, it is what it is. You just it is what it is.
I honestly think that he had the pick because he was finally put in. Because teams are going to have to play man against Kansas City, and I think they played a lot of man, and I feel like he was finally put in
the best spot for him to showcase some skills.
I'm about to say something crazy, but I think they helped him out there a little bit. So I don't think that this happened. I don't think they say anything. It's like
it's gonna be very tough. I know they're getting Jaden Daniels back, so that'll be a boost. Just overall. We saw how limited that offense ended up becoming, especially in this last game, where Marcus Mariota threw the ball down the field maybe twice. I don't know, not a lot. And it was just a lot of little dump offs, screens, trying to get creative. But I don't think they have enough on that offensive side to kind of keep up with Seattle's firepower right now.
I don't think they have enough on the defensive side.
They definitely don't.
I don't think they got the horses. So I'm also going with Seattle on this one. JSN, another big game for him. To keep pace with JT in that offensive player of the year race that they've got going on, at least currently. I just think that we talked. I feel bad because we gave like I said earlier, we gave Pittsburgh so much credit for all the older players that they got and hated on Washington, and we're right about Washington and clearly wrong about Pittsburgh this week. But when you get those older players, it just. Bobby Wagner again.
I think the biggest difference is
chasing like Drusky.
I'm about to say, I think the biggest difference is at least the players from the Steelers from at least last year they were okay. Ending the year. The players from Washington, no, we seen Bobby Wagner. He wasn't looking that good last year.
And the
Okay.
Steelers have
they keep
premier pass rusher, which automatically
So
puts
we
your
thought.
defense on it.
Oh, yes.
I mean, no, he is. He is. Let's not
Well,
disrespect
I
like
mean,
that.
He said so.
I'm
He's
just
not
saying,
having the best
JJ.
season.
No disrespect, but JJ Watt kind of having like a lot of like what Judon was looking like last year, where it one of the reasons that people were kind of hesitant about Judon in terms of trading for him is because even though he got hurt, like those last few games, he wasn't really doing anything. And last year, the last few games, including this year, what does JJ Watt had like one sack in the last or TJ had like one sack? Oh, yeah. Let me not disrespect the GOAT, JJ.
Nah, JJ,
It's
GOAT.
too much. JJ always doing something. But TJ had like one or maybe like 3 sacks over the last like 10 games. So
it's been a little rough. It's been a little rough.
So we thought. And Dorrance Armstrong, before he got hurt, was eating with Washington. So
man, what is Von Miller doing?
Come on now.
I'm just saying, bro.
He got a couple sacks. Jacob Martin got a couple sacks on Monday Night Football.
Yeah. That's about it though. Hey, Bobby can't. We gotta stop.
Hey, he said some of them play wasn't on him. So
I mean, maybe, look, but
I can't remember what website it was, but people have started to do their mid-season All Pros this week, and Bobby Wagner was on a couple people's, and I was very
he's not he can't be an every down backer. We have to stop. I don't know who they got behind him though, so I don't even.
It's tough. It's tough. And Dan Quinn's got to figure that out, and he's got to figure that out fast, because another person that I really, really wanted to put on that hot seat was Adam Peters, and I didn't, just given he's fairly young in his in his career with as a GM, so I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but it was about to be him with the four of them, but. With that being said, getting into the Monday night game, we got the Cardinals versus the Cowboys. Who you guys got this week and why?
So, I mean, this is an interesting game for me because, like, I don't know about, like, y'all teams in general, but, like, every team seems to have, like, somebody that just got their number. Like, for the Eagles, we just can't beat the Seahawks. It doesn't matter what year it is. We just fucking loosen them. The Cardinals got the Cowboys number. Every time they play them, they running 200 yards rushing, no matter who the back is. And we already know Dallas defense cannot stop the run. Like I said, this is a continuation from the week prior when I did have Kyler on the hot seat. I think he's gonna have a good game coming back if he does play. And yeah, I'm rolling with the Cardinals with this one. I think this is one of them games where, I mean, we might think one thing, but I guess, Dallas, they think they still have one of them. They still have a thought in their head of having a chance to make the play. I think this is one of the games where, put them at the crossroads. They're like, all right, what's next? So
that'll be a tough one for Dallas to drop at home, man. Cardinals are coming off that bye. I'm gonna go Dallas though in this one. I know I put Flus on the hot seat, but Flus got to show me something. And I'm putting a little bit of faith in him, but more faith in that Dallas Cowboys offense to kind of get right a little bit. We'll see, because the Cardinals defense is no slouch. They definitely have the players. They got definitely more healthy over the bye, so it's gonna be tough. But I got Dallas at home.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be one of the better games of the week as well. Because like you mentioned, the Cardinals defense is pretty good. I know maybe statistically they might not be up there, but they could have very well started the season undefeated, at least through the first 3-4 weeks. And then, they had the very, very, very tough loss against the Titans. I think they had a tough loss in the end against Seattle. They've had some tough breaks. They had a tough loss against the Colts.
Green Bay, in my opinion, too.
Yeah, Green Bay. I mean, it's been a lot of tough losses that they've had. So I think the bye week kind of came at a good time for them to get back healthy, get away from the game for a little bit, and kind of recalibrate. And Dallas coming off their a tough, very, very tough loss for them, and I think it was a big game. Like I said, a big game for them, big game for Dak. Where hey, look, I could come out of this and people are really, really having conversations about me as an MVP. And I know players like to say they don't care about that, but they absolutely do. I mean, it shapes your legacy. It changed an MVP, a Super Bowl champion, championship. It changes everything about you as a quarterback, especially. So, and how people view you. One thing nobody's mentioned, Kyler Murray, Texas legend. Like Chris mentioned, the Cardinals do have the Cowboys number, so I'm also going with the Cardinals in this one. And we get a big Kyler Murray game, and we finally see a Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison in the star touchdown, and a big Marvin Harrison game as well. So I got the Cardinals winning this one on Monday Night Football. And like you said, we will have a lot of questions about Dallas, but I think a lot of these teams, Dallas, Buffalo especially, if they do lose, we're going to have very, very strong conversations about them next week, not just in terms of what their outlook looks like, but them making a big-time move before the trade deadline. Well, maybe not the Cowboys, but Buffalo. Cowboys probably should, go into the draft, I feel like. Because, they draft well. They draft really well, in my opinion. Yeah. So I don't think that they need to necessarily go out and trade those first-round picks if they can get something for cheap. But Buffalo, much like I said,
gotta do something.
I came hard at Keon Coleman a couple weeks ago. A bad game by you and a good game by Xavier Worthy. You probably really should have been on the hot seat this week because,
now they're down Joshua Palmer. So it's you, dude. It's you. Keon, it's you.
And I think, much like I said about Kyle Pitts and Drake London, I think that, they kind of win. Drake London and Kyle Pitts kind of win in the same way. And that's why we see now Kyle Pitts is on the fucking, he's not a receiver. He's not an outside receiver. I don't know why they keep doing that. Stop throwing him screens. It's not his game, but whatever the case may be. Same thing with Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman. I think that Keon Coleman is actually more of a big slot, similar to Drake London. It should be deployed that way. But you have Khalil Shakir there, who is a really good slot already. It makes it a little tough. So I think a Rashid Shaheed would be very good for them. If they could, get Rashid Shaheed and get Josh Palmer and then have Shakir and Keon Coleman, switch off in the slot, I think that would once again open up wonders for their offense. But
hey, you know what receiver would be great for them, Chris? Stephon Diggs.
I don't know, because Stephon kind of slot now too, in a sense.
Alec Pierce though. Alec Pierce would be good for a lot of teams now.
Alec Pierce would go in nuts with Josh Allen, boy. Oh my God,
Alec Pierce would go crazy, boy. He gotta get the respect. He will though. He'll get paid. He'll get paid.
He'll definitely get paid. But we'll see, because he might not be leaving Indianapolis.
We'll
see. We got some decisions to make. Daniel Jones, you're not getting a big check, so don't even get your head.
Give him that check. He want that check. He want that check. At least 40 mil. At least.
He got that check from the Giants from doing that, and what he doing now?
Yeah.
Let's see.
50.
40.
About 45. About 45.
Look, what they said, we changed that broke ass nigga life. he can't come with no demands, Chase. Hey, bro.
Hey, that's also true, because he had no kind of weapons.
We see what you was looking like with Dayball. They say he an offensive guru. Look, I'm real nigga here.
That's what they say.
Nah, but hey, they got some decisions to make. So,
for sure.
With that being said, that gives us a wrap for another episode of the Speak Up Sports Podcast. Like I said, we got the NBA in-season tournament kicking off this weekend. Finishing up with the World Series over the next couple of days, and the NBA or NFL trade deadline next week. So we got a big week coming. We will catch y'all then.
Yes, sir.